Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
It is Wednesday, the 11th day of May, 2011. We're going to be live here for at least the next 3 hours. Vincent Bugliosi, who's called for George W. Bush to be charged with treason, is going to be joining us today. And I'm going to ask him if Obama should get in trouble for his lies, bringing us into new wars, or is this just basically more partisanship? I'm also going to pick his brain, the prosecutor that got, of course, one of the most famous mass murderers or serial killers dead, and that, of course, gentleman needs no introduction, Charles Manson. Bugliosi also has written a big book poo-pooing those that question the JFK assassination in Dealey Plaza back in 1963. We're going to cover the waterfront with Mr. Bugliosi today. Now, I have Glenn Spencer of American Patrol joining us. I remember Spencer more than 10 years ago in the late 90s putting out videos predicting there would be secessionist movements of California, Arizona, Texas, Nevada, and that the illegals, along with the help of the Fortune 100 as part of the North American Union, would move to, quote, call it a new state, but basically it's an enclave of Mexico. And if you look at the new announcement that's been made and gotten almost no media attention, I mean, it's in NPR, AP, Reuters, but it's like, oh, how cute. They're going to get the votes, and they're getting the petitions to go to the legislature and create the 51st state and break it off. Of course, it borders Mexico, just like the Russians have South Ossetia and Abkhazia on their southern border, basically taking part of Georgia. We're going to start ceding land to a new little enclave that will have wide open borders. Just absolutely incredible. And folks are like, this will never pass. Well, no, this is the beginning of the balkanization of America. It's a long-term strategic plan. First, they create a larger North American Union and then transfer the power to the multinationals. But then within Canada, within the U.S., within Mexico, they will then break certain areas off to be ethnic enclaves that are then basically funded and militarized by the globalist to then play different subsections of the larger system off against each other. First, they water down sovereignty by creating super regions. Then they internally break those super regions up into enclaves. And this is just standard New World Order great game operations. And if you missed those articles yesterday, liberals in southern Arizona seek to form new state. That's Reuters, New York Magazine. Arizona liberals are trying to form their own tiny liberal state. Well, it's a beachhead for La Reconquista, La Infosora. Also, Obama ready to roll out new amnesty carpet for illegals, including, this is like the Republican legalization plan of 4 years ago, including felons. Of course, you come across from Latin America into Mexico, you get a year of hard labor in a slave camp. And just search, Mexico is the hardest on immigrants of any country in the world after North Korea. I mean, you go to a slave camp. They get your family info, and they call your family up, especially if you're in the U.S., and they say, look, we've run your credit. We see you got about $400,000 you could probably pay us. Do that or your husband, son, or daughter's dead. They just point blank, we're going to murder your family. And the Latin Americans, they just beat them, kill them, torture them, and it's oh so liberal and good. So we're going to be, and Robert Rodriguez makes movies where Texas ranchers kill pregnant Hispanic women, not real, and the coyotes are heroes. Of course, every week they find new mass graves on the Texas border where the coyotes line up little kids, women, children, blow their heads off, chop their heads off because they didn't pay them the cash, try to sneak across. And you've got the Mexican mafia basically running a lot of the Hispanic media, teaching us how cool it is to be a narco murderer. This is Alex. Why do we even have state governments in this country if the Democrats and Republican leadership have basically expanded the federal government into every facet of our lives, violated the Bill of Rights, Constitution, Declaration of Independence, prosecuted a coordinated, incremental war of attrition against every canon of a free society? Why do we even have states if Mr. Maddow and others tell us that there is, Rachel Maddow, tell us that there is no such thing as any state rights? And most of the time when I go on MSNBC or Phil Hartman's show on RT or, quote, liberal TV or radio shows, they say, Mr. Jones, you want Texas to secede. You want to have war with the federal government. You want to bring back slavery. You want to, all this nonsensical buzzword stuff for their audience. And I respond with, I want the 10th and 9th Amendment. Up until 1913, the same year we got the income tax and the private Federal Reserve that we pay that money to. Before that, the state legislatures that we elected, I mean, your state legislator was basically a U.S. senator. I mean, they had power because they would then elect, the state would elect the U.S. senator and send them to Washington as a minion of the states. They tried to get rid of U.S. senators during the Civil War, the senators being elected in the states by the legislatures, but they failed. But 1913, they said, look, we got to get federal control now that we're sold out to foreign banks. We've got to get these senators up here so we can buy them off, because every time we buy them off, the states recall them. Oh, the state legislatures could just call a vote and say, Senator Johnson, Senator Brown, Senator Wilson, whatever the name was, you didn't do what the state told you to do, and you're in violation of the 9th and 10th Amendment. You are hereby recalled and relieved. We're holding a special election. We're appointing a new U.S. senator. Not anymore. That's what the 9th and 10th Amendment are about. The federal government protects the border, controls the issuance of currency and credit, and has a Navy to defend against invasion with ground troops to be trained only to be deployed via the Navy. That's the Marine Corps. Now, that's it. An army has to then be raised for larger defense, because they were scared of a standing army because they'd studied Europe, they studied Asia, they'd studied what had happened with the Spanish and French in Latin America. Constantly, the military leaders that Spain and Portugal and others had in Latin America, and the Germans had, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, were constantly kicking the empire out and declaring themselves supreme emperor over whatever island or country it was, Mexico, you name it. And they were like, we do not want standing military. So these things take over in every case. Now, our military-industrial complex has just done it by getting trillions of dollars a year in tax money, buying off all the infrastructure, financing over 90% of R&D, research and development, and it itself was financed by the big offshore banks. I mean, we're totally captured by offshore banks. America is gone. It doesn't exist. It was taken over a long time ago. And I'm here to break you out of your trance. If we could admit what's happened, just like when a hijacker hijacks a plane, I don't care if some Libyan hijacker 25 years ago dressed up in the captain outfit. They did that a few times. And there were studies done on suddenly the passengers wouldn't resist as much after they had a chance to get into pilot uniform. It was still, oh, now you're wearing a pilot uniform. Well, we just saw you hijack the plane with a gun and a bomb, but so that's how psychology works. We'll go ahead and do what you say. You're wearing the uniform. And it's the same psychological warfare system today. In 1913, predominantly owned by the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and Bank of England, this is on record, took over the issuance of currency and credit. One of the three things the feds are supposed to do. Since then, under NAFTA and GATT, we have a continental security perimeter, and we're supposed to merge our nations. That's public. Bush put it into place. Obama publicly signed it, 2 months ago? After that furor and the fight we had against it 6-5-4-3 years ago with Bush, building up to this. They played possum and said, you won, we're backing off. So I'm ranting about states' rights right now because it's so important to understand that I am not a secessionist. At this point, the federal government's been seized by traitors who wear our garb, wear our uniforms, speak in our language, just as Cicero. Will you guys pull me the Cicero quote about the traitor is the plague? Just Cicero quote, Rome, 2,046 years ago, I believe is the date of the quote. Right before they killed him. The traitor is the plague. And then get me that full quote. But the point is, the outside enemy that comes with their banner openly, they're not the threat because you can mobilize against it. The traitor is the plague because they come from within. Now, the government's been taken over. The feds are trying to federalize the states so that we don't have the recourse to get our government and our federal government back. And down the road, we may just have to go with secession because I've always said this. For more than a decade from studying history and the globalists and how they operate in other nations, what they're setting up here. Because the globalists create mega unions, but then within that union create new boundaries along religious, ethnic, and socioeconomic lines. And the Romans would do this in regions they took over, breaking them up and putting different minions into different areas. They would get black Africans to fight with their neighbors just because they were a different tribe. They would get Gaul, France, Germania, Germany today, the Ostrogoths in Austria, the ancient Swiss. They would literally just find out with their own anthropology, and Caesar wrote a book on it, others wrote books on it, Julius Caesar did, how they would play different people off against each other. Battle of Gaul, good book. Used to have people read it in high school. That's when I first read it. Just amazing. I learned so much just from that, and since I've read more than 100 books just on what the Romans did. And they would go in, send spies in, usually to live as traitors for years, trading amongst the groups. It's like that Star Trek episode. I'm not a big Star Trek fan, but I did see it when I was a kid. The old-fashioned Star Trek with Captain Kirk, where they go to this planet, and there's the two living... last two living people of that planet, and they've all killed each other in wars, and one side has a black face on the left, and the other side has a black face on the right. The one side of the face is white, the other side of the face is black, and one group was the elite group, and the other group is the slave group. They're identical genetically, just that for that one little trait that the sides of the face are flipped, and they had wars till they exterminated each other. And going back to reality, that's what the British Empire did in India. That's what they did in Africa. That's what the French did. It's what the Dutch did. They would go in for a few years, study things, look at things, write manuals, write letters back to London. This is what we suggest you do. We've been studying them for a decade. This tribe hates that tribe. This other tribe hates that tribe. You use this tribe to knock out that tribe. And these other two tribes that don't like the other tribe, you move them in to destroy them. And then they'll all be weakened and destroyed. This should probably take 1 year of warfare. We'll give weapons to just this one group. Then once they're done, you roll in. Also, please, as quickly as you can, try to send some people from a nearby settlement that have smallpox. We want to give them some blankets to wipe them out. That's an official British manuals used pre-1776 from the French and Indian War, how to open the pus sores with people that had smallpox, smear it, and how to get it to the Indians within 1 day. They found that it was fresher. They didn't even know the science of microbes at the time, but that as long as it was a day or so that the smallpox was still communicable. I mean, it's all been scientifically figured out hundreds of years ago. And so we are probably going to have to move for secession just to protect the states. See, there's criminals in the federal government that are globalist who are already balkanizing the states to later break them up. And I've been saying this for over a decade. And so the only way I'll be for secession, I want to reestablish 10th Amendment, 9th Amendment, get the federal government back at the place it's supposed to be. They won't control the borders. That's in the Constitution. They won't control the currency and credit. That's been given to foreign banks. And they run all over the world in imperial operations. That is also not what they're supposed to do in the Constitution. They're supposed to just have a Navy and defend us from invasion, which, again, they won't do from the third world country to our south that is